Welcome to another episode of Capacity. Today we're here with Jeff Greer from SON-AERO. SON-AERO is a AS9100 aerospace company making rubber, metal, and plastic components for a variety of different things. Behind them are some cool stuff. They've made stuff for Tomahawk cruise missiles and space shuttle and M1A1 tanks. A really great operation. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you have a very interesting story. This is a really, really old business that's been around since 1955. Mm-hmm. And you came into the picture somewhere in the mid-2010s. Tell me the story. How did you get into this business?
I was in the CPA world, public accounting, for 21 years. And this company, Sonfarrel Inc., was one of my customers, one of my clients. And serviced them for ever since I started off as staff there, and then they were my client when I became a partner. And it was a great company. I mean, they did really well, performed very well. It was owned by a husband and wife whose the husband's father started a company in 1955. And so this was second generation. And they were in their 80s. The husband passed away in 2013, and the company really started to struggle after that point for various reasons. And so there were some issues with the current CEO at the time, and the owner, the widow, she asked me if I would come on to be the CEO for the company in 2015.
Was the CEO at the time a family member or an outside hire?
No, it was an outside hire. He had worked here for a number of years, but there were just some decisions being made, and also with the change in some of the industry with certain platforms that they were selling parts for that were changing, that really caused the difficulties that they faced.
But historically, when you were their CPA, there was a very profitable business.
Very profitable, just like a cash cow. And so when 2013, 14 hit, they really started to struggle, started losing money, and became a little more difficult from a financial standpoint. And I thought, I could just swoop in there and make some changes and get it back on course, and everything will be
easy peasy.
Fine. Easy peasy, yeah. It didn't turn out that way.
Well, so they're losing money. How are they funding that loss? Like with a smaller company like this, it's hard to fund those losses, right?
It is. The owner was funding it.
I see.
Yeah. So she had to put a lot of money back into the company, unfortunately, and it was a difficult time.
What were the conversations like? As her CPA, were you just saying, hey, I need $1 million check this month or whatever it may be, or how did that work?
Yeah, it not before I came here. She was just putting the money in, but when I got in here, I realized there was a lot more going on than what meets the eye. So you started peeling back that onion, you could really see that, hey, there's a lot of major issues here that's going on that's attributing to the decline in revenue. Was
it quickly obvious? Like how long after you came on board did you start to see how many layers there were in that onion?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. We had, for instance, a story that comes to mind is 6 months after I was here, we got a call from Boeing telling us they were pulling out and they didn't want to do any more business with us. At that time, they couldn't really share anything with me, but they were like, hey, we're out. We want you to ship everything you have on order early, and we're not going to place any more orders with you. And so that was one of the major issues hit right off the bat. Fortunately, we were kind of an open book to them. We helped them out with their investigation, all that kind of stuff. And by August, they were back in saying, hey, we're going to continue to work with you. So
what was your messaging to the team at that time?
It was hard because you couldn't really tell them anything at that time.
Yeah.
What was going on. And actually Boeing couldn't tell us. We'd ask them why, and they said, well, we can't tell you. But we kind of knew at the beginning. We felt we knew. So to tell the team, it was we couldn't really tell them anything. It says, hey, this is stuff that's out of our control. We're trying to do the right thing now and to move forward and hope for the best. And we did have to have some layoffs during that time because of it. Yeah.
Okay, so gut punch from Boeing. What else happened in that period?
I think the biggest thing is, you have a closely held business. You have a family run business for, over 50 years, 60 years. Second generation ownership, third generation, all working in the business.
How many of them were there?
There were four of them working in the business. Yeah, so there were three of the children, and then one granddaughter this year.
It's hard to carve out that many positions in a smaller company for all those children, right?
It wasn't that bad because some of them worked in the shop, some in maintenance, some in accounting. So they were kind of spread out. It wasn't all upper management. So, but the difficult thing probably the biggest thing that happened is when I came in, I tried to make some changes, add some new policy procedures and so forth. And if those rubbed certain individuals the wrong way, then they would complain to the owner, and then she would kind of say, no, you're not going to do that. And so we really struggled with, we would build an executive team and a core team and do some strategic planning and so forth. And we'd say, hey, we want to implement this. And at first go ahead. But once certain individuals saw that, then she would say, no, you're not going to do that anymore. So
what drove that? Was it just like insecurity or?
Yeah, I think it was more insecurity than anything, thinking probably more of, hey, we don't need to change anything. We've been fine for years. We don't need to change. They just couldn't see, for some reason, they couldn't see that, hey, you guys are losing a lot of money here. You're having to put a lot of money back in the company, and things aren't going well. We need to make changes. And they just couldn't see that.
When dealing in those situations, like, what was your strategy? Like, did you find something that worked? Like, how did you approach a problem where you're in charge of this business, it's not doing well, and you see obvious things to change where you're not allowed to do them or not allowed to continue to do them?
It's hard. I mean, it's very difficult because your legs get cut out from under you. And then people around you, that your coworkers, they realize that, and they think, okay, well, any decision you make, you're not going to be able to implement, or it's not going to be supported. So it was really hard. So we just tried to make changes where we could, try to implement things where we could and have those accepted, try not to ruffle any feathers in certain areas. So we knew certain areas to stay away from. But it was really difficult. It's really difficult to really change the culture. And I don't think it really happened until we took over.
When I've been in those types of situations, it's made me feel like questioning myself, or like how did you deal with that mentally and operationally?
Yeah, I think the mental part was really tough. I mean, it was tough to come to work every day, knowing that certain individuals that had influence with the owner didn't care for you just because of the changes you wanted to make, and that made it really, really hard to come to work and to do your job, and also to be that leader and cheerleader for like the rest of the team, right? For everybody that works here, to say, hey, yeah, we got to push forward. We got to keep doing these things, and we're gonna be fine. So those were very difficult times, and there was a lot of bad habits that have been created. My CEO and I, we would go to visit customers, and they were not fun meetings. Everyone we visited, they were just like, we're not going to be doing business with you anymore pretty soon because you guys just don't do a good job. You don't deliver. You're late. Your quality, all this kind of stuff. And I had to be in there trying to say, hey, we're changing. We're going to, we're implementing new stuff. We're going to get ourselves on the right track. Just stay with us, and I guarantee we'll get there. But those first couple of years of meetings were very difficult.
Couple of years. It's a long time to go through that. You didn't think about quitting at any point in time?
I did. I thought, is this really worth it? And, I came from a pretty nice situation I was in. I was a partner at a national CPA firm, and I was doing fine. And I just thought, hey, I just do this change. But I really felt like this was something I was called to go into, and just felt it was something that I wanted to be a part of. And even when through those difficult times, I just felt I was in the right place for some reason. There was some just kind of peace about it, me being here, even though it was a struggle and it was hard. I just felt I was in the right place.
Who are your allies here? If these third generation folks and their allies were kind of against change, were you able to kind of build a coalition around you of people that understood and saw what you saw?
Yeah, I had a few. We had my CEO, Ken Anderson. He was one from the start that we kind of bonded really quickly. There's our current plant manager, Alberto Silva. He was a really good person who could see that I was wanting to make the right changes and so forth. And we built an executive team. We were able to hire some people in, and those new individuals really took to what we were trying to do and could see that. So that was a good part of it, is that we were able to bring in some new people, very limited, but we had them and they could see, hey, what we're trying to do is really going to make a difference if we stick to it.
So you're just crawling through mud for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Were you able to turn around in that time? So 2013 and 2016, like what was the output like of the things that you were able to do? What were the results?
Yeah, we actually did start to turn around. We started bringing our scorecards up with some of the customers. We saw some more higher shipments starting to go out, more bookings coming in. I even told the owner at the time, she decided she was going to sell the company, wanted to sell the company. And I said, hey, I think by this time next year, we're going to be fine. We're going to turn around. But I think at that point, she was kind of tapped out, didn't want to keep funding it for the rest of another year, which she would have had to do. So she decided to sell,
Was it a position, like a mental state that kind of deteriorated over time? Like it seemed like in the beginning, it was almost the way that it sounded when we were talking about it, it was like a no-brainer to continue to fund the business early on. But after 3 or 4 years, like what was that change like with you and her?
It was interesting because when I came in here, I felt like I was her most trusted advisor. And after being here about a year or so, some people had influenced her saying, hey, you can't trust him, but the changes he's making and so forth. And so I didn't really have a lot of the conversations I had in the past with her. And she had some attorneys she brought in and was dealing with them, and they were making the decisions on, when to exit and so forth. So I kind of was out of those conversations towards the end.
Yeah, I've been in a situation as an outside CEO when you stop talking to the owner, that's a little bit of a spidey sense, right? Like you start feeling like you might lose your job.
Yeah, and from what I hear, I almost did. So there was a number of times I think she was thinking of letting me go and so forth, but fortunately she didn't. So,
were you competing for the job with one of the children or anybody else in the company?
No other competition for my position.
So really just a resistance to change, not necessarily to you.
Yeah, it was really the resistance to change, and it really wasn't from the owner. I think it was the influence of others that didn't like the change that really influenced her to go that direction. And it really was not seeing the dire straits the company was in and that we needed to make changes. They were more of, hey, we just need to stay the way we've been doing the business for the past 50 years and we're going to be fine. And it just wasn't working out.
It is hard sometimes, right? You have to balance out this feeling that you got to stick to your values and what worked, but also be realistic about the world changing and things changing. That seems, to me, at least from my perspective, pretty drastic to go from not trusting you anymore, cutting you off a little bit from communication, almost firing you behind the scenes, to now selling the business to you.
Yeah.
What happened in that time period?
Well, she didn't really have a choice of not selling it to me. I had first right of refusal. So she
as part of your CEO position.
Yes. Yeah. So that was part of my employment agreement. So she found a buyer to buy it. And then if I could match it, then I had first right. So that's how I got to purchase it.
So when you came on as CEO, you had kind of already had a little bit of a seed of expectation that you might own the business at some point in time.
Yeah, I was thinking that, she was in her 80s, probably going to sell it, within 5-10 years, and I'd have the opportunity to purchase it. Yeah.
So how did that first right of that ROFR work? Like, did you have a bidding war with this other party, or like what happened to that transaction?
No, the way it worked is she would have to find a buyer, settle on a price, and then we just had to match it. I just had to match it. That's it. So there's no bidding war or anything. So she went to market out there, said, yeah, this is what it's worth.
Did you know that she was looking?
Yeah.
You work with a broker or something?
Yeah. And I would supply all the information they needed. And
Sure.
And then, they determined a price. And then I said, hey, I can match that with a group of investors that I have. And
were you working in parallel? Were you already kind of getting the investor support, or?
Yeah, I was already in the process of trying to find investors to make sure I had a group ready. So we'd be ready because I only had so many days once they had an offer.
Sure.
Like 30 or 60 days, whatever it was. So I made sure I had a group of investors, already ready to go for that. So
on one hand, you have an owner, second generation, 50 years of profitability, last 4 or 5 years not doing so well, wanting to sell, not seeing the vision of the future, not agreeing with you. On the other hand, you have investors who you've been able to convince this unprofitable business is worth investing in at this price. Like, that seems kind of like, not two-faced, but like it just feels duplicitous. Like how was that period of your life in working in both those worlds?
It was difficult. I mean, like I said, I told the owner that, hey, I think within a year we're going to be turned around. We're going to be fine. And I felt we were heading that direction. And not
everybody in your position would have been as transparent with her. You know what I mean? If you have a right of first refusal. So
that might be true, but I think that you have to be. I mean, you can't be dishonest. I mean, one of our core values here is do the right thing. You have to do the right thing no matter what the consequences. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you a lot, but you have to, because if you don't, it's going to come back to bite you. So I thought, you know what, I have to be upfront. I guess, let her know that, hey, this is what I see coming. But like I said, she was just done. And so when the investors group, I would say, hey, this is where we are. This is where we've been. And this is where I think we're going to be going in the near future. I think it could be very, very lucrative, if we do the right things. And the ownership team that we brought in are very experienced in business. In
aerospace manufacturing?
No, not in aerospace, in other industries.
I see.
So they have very successful businesses. They understand business, and they looked at it and they felt, yeah, this looks like something that we're willing to take a chance on.
Did you have to pitch a lot of people? Were there people that passed and just said, I don't see it, or?
No, there was, I had 2 different groups, one from Texas and then one here in Southern California. And I actually initially decided to go with the Texas group, and then I backed out of it because I liked this group here in California better. And it turned out to be the right fit. Yeah.
Awesome. So then was it like a flip of a switch, or like how long did this process take to go from working with a broker to sell a business that you then put your own bid on and matched and bought? Like what was that transition like?
It took a while. I mean, it was transitioning new ownership to a new company, because we were a new company. We bought the assets, so we were a whole new company. New name. We had the old company was Sonfarrel Inc. We were Sonfarrel Aerospace LLC, so it was a totally different entity. So there's a lot in that process. You got to change with your customers. You got to change with the government. You got to sign all these different agreements and so forth to make sure you transfer contracts, and that takes a long time. And it takes a long time for your customers, your clients, to transfer that in their system. So we still get orders coming in like from DLA or so forth with the old cage code, and we have to let them know, hey, this is not our cage code anymore. We've already gone through that numerous times with you guys. So that process is long and arduous, but as far as the transition, I mean, we had, like I said, we had a great investor group. We funded the company well. We knew we were going to struggle for a little bit, and we did. 2019 was we took over in October 2018. Finished up the year okay. 2019, towards the end of it, we started to turn around. Things were, we were doing well. We were actually profitable that year.
Were you expecting to lose customers in this transition at all, or?
No, we weren't. We didn't think we'd lose any. I found that it's difficult for customers to change vendors. You know, there has to be a really strong reason to do so. I mean, you have to cause them a lot of pain. And we were starting to turn things around and they could see that. So I think that's why they stayed with us. And even with the change, it's still the same company, same facility, same machinery, same, for the most part, same individuals working. So there wasn't a lot of changes to scare them off. So they stayed with us, which was great. Yeah.
So you spent 4 years in tough conversations saying that things will change. And then after just a year and a half, things actually did change.
They were starting to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. About, like I said, 2019, they started to change towards the end of 2019. And then, of course, COVID hit in 2020.
Before that, I want to go back and touch on a question that I thought of. They talk a lot about CEO market fit or CEO company fit. And in touring here and talking to folks at work here and hearing stories, it feels like you fit this company in a specific way, or you've made it fit somehow. Can you tell me about that, about how the business might not have fit you and how you might have made it fit, and why you might be a perfect archetype to run this type of business?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I didn't know anything about aerospace when I took this job. So it's been or manufacturing really. It's been a really big experience or learning. I had a lot to learn for sure. So it's been a big education for me process. But I think some of my life experiences has really prepared me for this. And that is, when I was kind of like, I think you told a story about this going to college, but when I went to college out of high school, I was the first person to go to college in my family. My dad was a blue collar worker. He was a pipeline welder and worked pipelines and refineries and that kind of stuff, being a welder. So I was the first one to go to college. So I went to junior college. And I just screwed around. We went and played golf. I didn't go to class. I didn't really care. I didn't know what I was doing. Very immature. Failed all my classes. And so I said, well, I guess I'm supposed to do what my dad does. So I went to work in construction. I worked as a welder helper and a pipe fitter for about 5 years. And got that experience of, working with my hands and getting dirty and so forth. And then I got married. And my wife was in college. She was going to be a senior in college. And after a year of marriage, I'm like, you know what? I think I need to go back to college because I'm not going to be able to have a decent conversation with this woman. It seemed like she was way above me. So I decided to go back to college, and I took up accounting. And
does she know you went back for her?
Yeah,
okay.
She does. Yeah, she does. Yeah, so I got a degree in accounting and became a CPA, and history there. But I think all that, even the early on, the work that I did in construction, different segments of society you deal with, right? And blue collar worker, white collar workers, and so forth, and you have a different mentality of business and life, and I had that when I worked in both industries. And a lot of times you don't understand one or the other. I remember when I was in construction, it was like, we'd make fun of those guys that were in suits or wearing ties to work and so forth. They didn't understand what it really meant to work hard. But when I got on the other side, I'm like, hey, this is just as hard work. It's just different. We work different. So I think all those experiences help prepare me for coming here, because you're working with those that sit in the office all day, and you're working with those that work on the factory floor all day. And I think it just gave me a different perspective of individuals.
It does seem that you care quite a bit about the welfare of your team and how they work, and you seem to understand them. Coming from the outside, what part of that came naturally to you and what was hard to learn?
I really do care about our employees. I mean, they're I tell our executive team all the time, hey, we're here. Our purpose here is to make sure that they succeed in their careers, that they can get as far as they can in their career, that they can have the training they need to advance if they want to advance, or if they get the training, they decide to go somewhere else. That's fine. Whatever is best for them. So I really do care about them, and I think that's part of our purpose or responsibility, I should say, as a CEO, is to make sure that my employees succeed. And the thing that's trying to think of was it difficult. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, and I try to relay that message to them. And I think I think they see that I do care about them. Now, that doesn't mean I have to make hard decisions. I mean, there's people I got to let go, or which is hard to do. But times we have to do that. And then there have been people we've had layoffs during the COVID time, or part of the COVID time, or before it, that we had to do. And fortunately, I was able to hire some of those people back later on. But so caring doesn't mean that you're just doing everything, making everybody feel great and happy, right? Sometimes there's tough love that comes in, right? You have to do what's right for the individual, even though it might be painful.
Zooming back again, things are going a little bit better in 2019. They're looking up, and then all of a sudden COVID hits you. What happened?
Yeah, that was interesting. Even though we were a essential business, right? So we did not shut down, which is great. That was wonderful. But 80% of our work is defense, 20% is commercial. So the commercial side really dropped off completely. So that really hurt us. And then also there was just a slowdown. There was a slowdown in processing orders, getting things done, getting things through the system as far as with our customers, and then also internally as well, because you had different restrictions on distances, being apart from people, and all those other things. So the work just went slower. And so that caused greater loss in work as well, and revenue. So it was difficult. I mean, fortunately, we have a great ownership team, and they were willing to fund that period of time to get us through it. And we were able to get through it.
How long did it last?
Started in 2020 and 2020 was actually fine. It was 21 and 22 was really where we got hit the worst. And by the end of 23, we were back doing well.
Now, over the last couple of years, I know since we've talked that you've grown crazy. You've many times over grown faster than the rest of the industry. And you made a point earlier to say that actually is really difficult for your customers to change vendors. Mm-hmm. You got to cause them a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And yet you seem to have been able to been the painkiller for your customers to the point where maybe something that didn't feel like pain now looks like it because you've done such a better job. Again, you've learned this from the outside in, no background in manufacturing or aerospace. What has guided you to be able to drive that level of success where, we hear, tangentially in the rumor mill about how well you guys are doing from not just you guys. Like, what are your guiding principles that allow you to pull that off as other people stumble?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, I think it's our core values that we have. So, and living by those. And I mentioned one was do the right thing. And then we have integrity, respect, and excellence. That's our core values. I think it's with our customers, it's building trust because our customers did not trust us. The former leadership before I came in would actually lie to our customers. And when I go visit them, they would know, hey, we knew every time we talked to him, he was lying to us. And so you have that reputation, even though with the change of leadership, it's hard to rebuild that trust. But so it's just taking the proper steps to build trust in your customers, or rebuilding that trust. And it comes down to doing the right thing. I mean, we had situations would arise and we would have, hey, we need to report this to our customer. We discovered this or whatever. And sometimes it was stuff that happened in the past, and now we have these parts here that weren't done correctly. And now we got to say, hey, you know what? These weren't done correctly when they were made a few years back or whatever. So I think that doing those things and also just meeting with them and discussing, hey, these are the things we're doing internally. These are the changes we're making. These are the core values we're living by. That starts rebuilding that trust. And with a lot of our customers too, we started utilizing a lot of their resources. The tier one companies, they have a lot of resources for their vendors or their suppliers. And we started using those and signing up for different trainings that they have or certain programs they have to improve quality and so forth. And I think they saw that, hey, we're willing to take those steps. We're willing to make investments to make changes. And that's where we started building that trust back with our customers and building back, which results in more orders, right? More work.
Oftentimes you talk to owners of shops and they'll say that they don't want to take those classes because they fear that it's like admitting they don't know what they're doing or whatever it may be. How did the team feel about it? How did you feel about it? Like, what was the psychology around that?
Well, I think that's kind of a mistake thinking that way because all of us, we don't know everything. We don't know. And sometimes we're doing things a certain way and there may or usually is a better way to do it. And so I think asking for that help is maybe you're not admitting so much that you're doing things wrong or you don't know how to do something. Maybe you're just searching for how can I become better? Because as a company, you have to keep growing. You got to keep improving. You got to keep finding ways to do things better. That's what's going to help separate you from your competition. And I think that, when you ask for that help, it's not saying, hey, we don't know what we're doing here. It's just saying, hey, we want some of your expertise to guide us too. And I think that's okay. And I think our customers feel that that's okay.
I think it also can feel hard too, because you can get in the pattern of thinking that it's zero sum and that if they want to train you towards something, it's going to advantage them and not you, and that you're going to make less money because of it. Have you found that to be the case or have you found it to be the opposite? Are there things that you may never have been able to see yourself had you not learned it from an outside party?
Yeah, I think the training and the help, the assistance that we received from different companies has benefited us greatly. And I don't think they've ever tried to steer us in a way that's just beneficial for them. I love working with, like, for instance, Lockheed Martin, because you can really tell they care about their suppliers. And when they come in to help us with something, I mean, they've been here doing spaghetti maps, drawings for us and helping us with the quality side and so forth. They really want to see you succeed. And it's not just what's best. So just on the stuff that you're working on for them, they want you to see succeed overall because they care about you as a vendor. But they know that, hey, if we get better as a supplier, that's going to benefit them, right? But it doesn't have to be geared just towards them. And I like that about them, that they do that. And I haven't seen that from other customers that we've received assistance from. They're, hey, you do this so it'll help us. No, they've come in here to help us so we can become better, which in the end helps them, right? Because we're servicing them better.
Well, you are servicing them better. You're delivering more on time. You're getting your make span, the amount of days between start and end, much shorter. From our perspective, we see you as an organization that does a couple things very uniquely. The first is that you say when you're wrong. You say, okay, actually, we need to improve our process here. And then when we're in the wrong, it's always a very reasonable, well thought out understanding of what's actually going on. Was that something that you created here? Was it something that was kind of underneath all of the negative stuff that was going on in the previous ownership? Is it something that other shops can create over time? What kind of creates that, and how did that translate into all of the improvements in your output?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the bad habits and the company culture was really poor when I came here. A lot of the things they didn't do the right thing. They would try to hide things. So that was really, really bad. So for us, is when I came in here, I really wanted to create a much better company culture, a culture of integrity and honesty and respect for others and also, like I said, the last core value, excellence, trying to pursue excellence. That's part of our mission is pursuing excellence. You're trying to pursue it. You're never going to ever reach it, but you're always trying to pursue it. So it's trying to change the culture of, hey, we have to do the right thing. We have to follow procedures. We have to be accountable for what our actions are, so that if we do something wrong, we got to let people know. We got to admit to it. We have to report to our customers as soon as possible. We have to communicate them as soon as possible, not waiting until the day before shipment's due. I think that for companies, working on that culture is one of the hardest things, and it also takes a long time. And sometimes making that change of culture means you're removing people that have been here for a while because they just won't change, and they're unwilling to change. And you have to get that person off the bus and get the right person on the bus. So we've had to do some of that, and we still deal with some of the old culture mindset, but we're still weeding that out. And it's been since I've been here, it's been 10 years. So. And we still have some of that old culture that's kind of ingrown in some of the employees that have been here for that whole time. So I think changing culture and working on that and realizing it's not going to happen overnight. Things don't happen overnight. It's a process, and then you just got to stick to it and be committed to it. And eventually it'll change and more people will get on board.
It's hard sometimes when the people you have to let go are actually really important to the business in some ways. They have some skill or some knowledge or something unique about them. How did you work through that?
Well, it comes back to creating that culture, right? So even though somebody may have a great skill and something that you definitely need, if they're not willing to, follow procedures or fit in with the culture, then you got to make the decision what's best for the company. And sometimes it is letting go somebody who may have all those skills. We've all heard the saying, everybody's replaceable, right? And everybody is. I'm replaceable. So it's realizing that you can always find somebody else to come in and do the job. Now, it may take more training, a longer time to get them up to the level of an individual you had to let go, but you have to do it if it's something that's bringing down the company in other ways.
I mean, it speaks to a philosophy of making decisions for the long term. Mm-hmm. Culture is a long-term investment, sort of a short-term one. And you seem to have that patience. Right now, we talked about how growing costs money, and you have a lot of lofty goals that you seem to be achieving over and over and over again. How do you balance that, this need for short-term growth always? Versus investing in the long term, and how do you? And what's the limit? Is there one? Is there a limit at which you just cannot invest in that long term anymore, and you have to do something short term to survive? Like, have you been tested in that way, even in success?
Well, I think we were tested during the COVID years. That's where we're really tested, because then you were making decisions that you normally wouldn't make. We were trying to ship anything we could early. If they let us ship it early, we were going to ship it. Didn't matter,
because you needed the cash.
Yeah, we needed cash. So we were doing whatever we could to generate cash, and that was going against some of the policies you normally would have to run your company properly, right? So sometimes you have to do those things just to survive. But in the long run, you want to make sure that you're staying to those policies and strategies that you put in place so that you can meet those long-term goals. Sometimes we do things in the short term just for immediate success or whatever, but it's going to hurt us down the road. So sometimes it's hard to evaluate those things properly, because you really want to, hey, I want to take this action because it's going to generate a lot of revenue or a lot of work right now. But we got to look long term and say, hey, is this going to benefit us long term? Is it going to benefit us to increase the value of the company long term? Because that's really what's more important, is to stabilize over a long period of time. But like I said, sometimes there's in those situations that you have to make those decisions, right, to survive. So unfortunately, we only had to do that once so far, and that was during the COVID years. And like I said before, without the support of ownership and so forth to help us through that, and also the ownership believing in me as a leader, just that they put their trust behind me because of the things that I was trying to do. That they said, "Hey, we're going to stay with you even though we're struggling." That was great to see, obviously, for me. But
so there's been a lot of growth. There's more growth ahead. How do you make sure that these values and your philosophy scale as you hire new people? You'll likely expand your executive team. Unfortunately, no matter what, you're going to have to add some layers of bureaucracy, and those procedures can become too rigid. How do you think about that? This is the pace that you're growing. You're going to very rapidly get to a point where business have to make a choice. Do you stay at around this size, or do you make the next leap? Have you given much thought to that? Or
yeah, of course. We want to be, like I said before, this was a closely held family business. And a lot of times when you do that, you're just you're working out of a shoebox for the money type thing. You don't have a lot of policy and procedures in place. So we wanted to try to build a company that's kind of a family-owned business feel for our employees, but also is run like a professional organization. So you got to make sure that you have policy and procedures in place. And that you're training people to adhere to those. So when we have somebody new come in, we have a training regimen for them. Obviously, every company does, right? To say, okay, these are things you need to learn, but also you need to learn, hey, these are our business ethics. These are our code of ethics. These are our things that we live by, right? So you have to understand that this is how we do business. Besides learning your skill set that you need for your job, but it's establishing and holding those policies and procedures. You have to, especially for growth, or else you're going to get to a point to where you can't sustain the growth. Right, because you don't have those things in place. So we've been trying to take the steps early on before it happens, putting the certain policies and procedures in place so we have them ready for the growth, and that's with adding the proper software we need, MRP system. It also has to do with our accounting systems. Has to do with implementing some of the things required in the industry now, like cybersecurity, CMMC. So we hit that early on to make sure we had all those implemented so that we were ready when those became a requirement from our customers. So it's just willing to take those steps way ahead of time so you're ready. I think a lot of times, and I've done this in the past, in my past work life, is you make decisions too late. You know something might be coming, but you're like, maybe not. Let's wait. And you wait too long, and then you're behind the curve, and it takes forever to catch up. So I try my best, working with my executive team. We try to forecast the best we can and try to stay ahead of that curve. And that's one thing too about the ownership team, is that they always say, hey, you need to hire good people to get ready for the future. Let's do it. Let's get those people on board now so we're ready when that work comes in. So we're not searching for somebody and can't find anybody.
Those are the two pieces of advice that I find myself constantly not doing, and I should. Charlie Munger calls it thumb sucking, right? You spend too much time sucking your thumb instead of actually acting on it. And then there's this fallacy where I think sometimes, no, I got to get bigger to go hire that person. Instead of, no, I got to go hire that person to allow me to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are doing great. Saw on your shop floor that you really embody this feeling of, we're going to start with, how do we make this thing to spec and make it of high quality every time? And how do we do it on time? And then work backwards to really think hard about what you need to change in your operations to deliver on that. You're growing. If somebody wanted to get on your dance card and also work with you, how should they get a hold of you?
Well, the best way is probably through our website, SON-AERO, son-aero.com. And we have a careers tab you can go to, and it shows our openings there and so forth. And then if you want, you can reach out just call us here at the office. The number's listed on the website. Or you could even send an email to hr@son-aero.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your insight and your perspective. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.